Good morning, friends. One of the things that I've been talking a lot with my clients about lately, it seems to be a common theme, is this theme between what the things our parents experienced that impaired their ability to be our parents in the best way possible and validating our own experience. A lot of times we have a hard time holding space between those two truths. And so becoming to a point where we're aware enough of the things that have happened in our lives that have harmed us, that have hurt us, that have caused pain, but also being aware of the stories that contribute to our story. So, for example, my dad, his dad was an alcoholic who cheated on his wife, divorced her, and then killed himself. So, my dad had minimal skills of how to deal with stress, how to cope, how to have a healthy relationship. And so when he opted for two of those solutions, to be unfaithful and to divorce, it makes sense that he had those experiences and that he was doing the best he could. And that also means that those things still hurt me and my siblings and my mom. And being aware of the fact of, okay, they can have their experiences and I can have my experiences, and both of them can be true. And it's not about blaming or shaming or flogging our ancestors or progenitors about the things they did that were mistakes, but being able to take ownership and hold space for both of those things is really important as we navigate our relationships. When we do that, we're better able to have space, grace, compassion for both parts of that. The part in my family that didn't have the skills to manage and that they were trying to figure it out the best they could, and the part of me that was hurt by the fact that their trauma trickled down into mine. Being able to pay attention to how we felt and grieve the things we didn't have while also not holding on to the anger. I've met a lot of people who experience the angry part and stay in anger. Oh, my parent was this, or my parent was that, or my parent didn't do this, or they did that too much, or whatever it is. But the reality is that all of it can be true, but we have to grieve it. There are clients that I've worked with who've had to grieve a parent that died early. But there's also people who have to grieve a parent who couldn't hold space for their feelings, who got angry whenever they had feelings, or was addicted and couldn't show up for them in a way that they needed. And so being able to say, oh, my dad was an alcoholic and that impacted me and it still impacts me today, is a really important process to participate in. When we make other people accountable for our feelings and our experiences, it leaves us in a position of being a victim. And being a victim feels very stuck, and it builds and breeds resentment. So being able to say, I'm in charge of how I communicate now. Maybe my parents didn't meet my needs. Maybe they didn't know how to even recognize my needs because their own inability to look at their needs. And maybe it's time for me to take responsibility for my own. A lot of times when we hold on to that anger and we're frustrated or resentful for what we think should have happened when we were small or even when we're adults, it affects our mental health and our ability to maintain any relationship. If we walk around and it's always someone else's fault that we don't have what we want, then everybody else has power. And that affects our ability to feel like we have worth or value or even control over what's happening in our life. So when we start paying attention to what do I need and who do I ask and how do I communicate that and what do I not need, being able to recognize the things we do and don't need is important. A couple days ago, I had a couple of sessions in a row that were really heart-wrenching. And because I'm working on practicing asking myself what I need, I paused between some sessions and I said, what is the thing I need when I get home? And I texted my husband. I said, hey, when I get home, I'm going to need a hug. And there wasn't anything more complicated than that. It was just one of those days. And it wasn't even the day. It was just two sessions that were really hard and hit some of my painful points. And he responded and said, okay, I'll be ready for you when you get home. And in the process of our conversation, he started asking about other things I might need. Some of them that were kind of unhealthy old habits that I'm trying to break. And so he offered, hey, do you want this? Hey, what about that? And I was able to set a boundary and say, nope, I just want the hug this time. Thank you so much. But if we don't know who we can ask, and we don't get it. And here's the thing that gets really tricky is sometimes we don't have people that we know we can ask. And that can be grief too. To say, hey, I don't know how to do this, and I don't have anyone I can ask. I remember shortly after my dad died, there was a time where my older sister and I worked together, and we were at work, and one of us, I think I went to go leave and realized my car battery was dead. And my dad was always the guy who fixed our cars. And so my sister came out and she was trying to help me. We borrowed some jumper cables from a coworker. And then I was stuck with this spot of forgetting which went on which. Where does black go? Where does red go? And we stood in the parking lot, and by this point it was raining. And we realized that we could not call Dad. And we cried in the parking lot. And then we remembered we have a big brother. And we called our big brother, and he walked us through it. And being able to know, hey, who are the people that can meet that need, even if it's lost, even if it wasn't available? Who are my people? And as we begin to be honest with ourselves and trust ourselves to be able to answer those questions, we can begin to create the safety we didn't have. But it's nobody else's job but ours to show up for ourselves and ask for what we need and how we need it.